Today, I want to take you straight to the stage. Blinding lights, booming music, deafening applause. Bodies sculpted to the extreme, the result of years of discipline, sacrifice, and total control. For the audience, this scene represents the peak of human strength, physical perfection, power, success. But that image we admire so much hides a reality that's rarely shown. Away from the stage, far from the spotlight, a worrying number of professional bodybuilders have had their lives cut short far too early. Many still young, some at the height of their careers, others shortly after stepping away from competition. People who looked indestructible simply didn't wake up one day. Most of the time, the official explanations are quick and straightforward. Heart failure, organ collapse, natural causes. But does that really explain everything? Or are we accepting answers that are way too simple for stories that are anything but? That's where the uncomfortable questions begin. Before anything else, one thing needs to be clear. This is not an attack on bodybuilding. It's not a rushed judgment either. The goal is to look past the surface, to understand patterns, and to question the silences. When similar cases keep repeating over the years, ignoring these questions stops being an option. And the first one almost asks itself, how much do we really know about the true cost of professional bodybuilding? Bodybuilders are seen as the ultimate symbols of strength, endurance, and discipline, bodies that seem to push past human limits. That's exactly why, when these lives are suddenly cut short, the shock is unavoidable. How can someone so strong be, at the same time, so vulnerable? These physiques don't happen by accident. They're built over years, sometimes decades, of strict control over training, nutrition, rest, and daily routine. Everything is calculated, adjusted, and optimized for performance. The body responds, grows, and impresses. But not everything happening inside it is visible. Muscle only tells part of the story. It doesn't reveal what's silently going on in the heart, kidneys, liver, or nervous system. On the outside, everything points to invincibility, while internally the body may be dealing with accumulated wear and tear that never shows up in the mirror. Over time, the professional bodybuilder's body is pushed through routines that go far beyond anything considered normal. Long, heavy, repetitive workouts with extreme volume and intensity, performed almost daily. At first, the body adapts. It grows. It holds up. But that adaptation isn't endless. The heart, for example, is constantly pushed beyond its normal limits. Heavy loads, continuous strain, and frequent spikes in cardiovascular stress create a burden that builds year after year. Small structural and functional changes can develop without clear symptoms, until the system simply fails. The kidneys and liver pay this silent price too. They work nonstop to handle massive metabolic demands, waste byproducts, and constant compensation processes. Unlike muscles, these organs don't show visible signs of fatigue. Damage progresses quietly, until there's no room left for error. The nervous system completes the picture. Training at the absolute limit requires a constant state of physical and mental alertness. Neurological fatigue builds up, affecting sleep, recovery, hormonal balance, and the body's ability to self-regulate. The body keeps going, but it's operating in a permanent high-risk state. Beyond extreme training, there's another key factor in this equation: what these athletes consume over the course of their careers. In professional bodybuilding, supplementation goes far beyond basic products. It's a complex world filled with substances, combinations, and protocols that are poorly understood outside the competitive scene. Many of these compounds haven't been studied over the long term, especially when used continuously and at high doses. On their own, they may seem manageable. Combined, over years, their effects become unpredictable. The body responds, but not always right away. The problem is that these impacts rarely show up in routine tests. Subtle changes in cardiac, kidney, or metabolic function can go unnoticed for a long time. Meanwhile, microscopic damage keeps piling up, quietly, with no clear warning signs that something is about to go wrong. When a death happens, the autopsy records only the final outcome. It points to the collapse, not the process. Everything consumed over an entire career almost never appears as a direct cause, even when it may have weakened vital organs for years. That wear and tear doesn't stop with the body. Outside the gym, the competitive lifestyle brings constant pressure. Extremely restrictive diets, followed for long stretches, affect hormones, energy levels, and emotional stability. The body is pushed into survival mode over and over again, season after season. As competitions get closer, things ramp up even more. Severe dehydration protocols are used to achieve the driest possible look on stage. Electrolyte balance is disrupted, blood pressure fluctuates, and the heart is forced to function under fragile conditions. Small mistakes can lead to serious consequences. The psychological pressure runs alongside all of this. Fear of losing relevance, constant comparison, and anxiety over results create a state of nonstop stress. That stress interferes with sleep, raises cortisol levels, and keeps the body on permanent high alert with no real time to recover. In the middle of this reality, the most shocking cases emerge. Well-known, respected bodybuilders with solid careers who died unexpectedly. People who, not long before, were on stage, smiling under bright lights, only to suddenly become quiet headlines. Once again, the official explanations feel incomplete. Heart failure, natural causes, sudden complications. But when you look closer, gaps, contradictions, and unanswered questions start to appear. In some cases, medical details were never made public. In others, accounts from people close to the athlete don't fully match the official version. When these stories are viewed together, patterns begin to repeat. Young athletes, intense careers, extreme contest prep, sudden collapse, generic diagnoses. Each case on its own may look like an isolated tragedy. Together, they point to something far more unsettling. That leads to an unavoidable question. Are we really looking at coincidences? Or is there a structural problem within high-level bodybuilding? There's also a sensitive subject that can't be ignored. The use of performance-enhancing substances is part of the sport's reality, even when it's not officially acknowledged. This isn't about moral judgment. It's about understanding cumulative effects over time. These substances rarely cause an immediate collapse. They work slowly, gradually altering hormonal, cardiovascular, and metabolic systems. A single blood test or exam can't show the true impact of repeated cycles and long-term combinations used over many years. On top of that, there's pressure from the competitive environment itself. In a scene where everyone is progressing fast, failing to keep up can mean disappearing. For many athletes, risk stops being a choice and becomes an unspoken requirement to stay relevant. Even with advances in sports medicine, science still seems behind the reality of professional bodybuilding. Long-term studies are lacking, especially involving retired athletes. Detailed public data is scarce. Investigations that look at an entire career, rather than just the final moment, are still missing. Given all this, responsibility can't be ignored. Federations, organizations, and coaches have enormous influence over this system. Setting extreme standards without owning the consequences creates a cycle where tragedies repeat themselves in silence. The need for transparency, deeper research, and continuous medical monitoring isn't an exaggeration. It's urgent. Protecting the image of the sport should never matter more than protecting the people who build it. And in the end, one question cuts through everything. How far is it really worth pushing the human body? Behind every trophy, there's sacrifice. Behind every jaw-dropping physique, there's damage. And behind every early death, there's a life that went far beyond the stage. Maybe true success in bodybuilding isn't just about muscle size, but about building a career that doesn't cost you your life. Because there's no such thing as a perfect body when the price is simply too human.